Good morning, folks. Hey, we're going to get back out and tackle the rest of our irrigation out in the fruit trees this morning. So come along for the ride on this beautiful Nebraska morning, and we'll show you what we're doing. Last weekend we got some lower than average temperatures. Saturday morning we actually had a little freeze. You can see what it did to our potato plants in that middle bed there. And you can also see how it's closer to the greenhouse, how that didn't get burnt as bad. Just that little bit of warmth from that greenhouse. It's amazing the difference in the temperature change. But it hasn't been very warm. It's been very drizzly, rainy the last few days, so we haven't been out in the greenhouse because we haven't needed to water as much. But this morning we had to throw some water on our tomatoes. You can see they're looking really nice. I'm going to start planting these out. I've already given quite a few away, but we'll take, as we give them away, we give away the taller ones that are a little more mature. But they're all doing really good. And then we have some other stuff, some kale and some herbs and some lettuce. Getting to be a little late for the lettuce. But we're going to start planting this stuff out probably this weekend when Kelly gets home from California. We'll get this garden planted. It's a little wet right now, so that's why we're working on this drip irrigation system for the fruit trees, which needs to get done. Now, if you remember last year in the garden, we used this drip tape and we had some problems with the rabbits eating through it. And you can tell by all the blue in that pile, all those are couplers where the rabbit chewed through our drip tape. It wasn't in the garden, but it was out here on this line of fruit trees where they could get at it. So we noticed that they didn't bother the mainline tubing. It was down on the ground and they didn't mess with that at all. So what we're doing this year, and hopefully it's going to last a while, we ordered some more mainline tubing from Dripworks, and we're going to put that out here in the fruit trees to see if the rabbits will leave this alone. Now you see we've already got one length of it stretched out here. We're going to do another one over here right now. We're going to let the sun get to that and warm it up a little bit so it's a little easier to work with, because when it's cold it's kind of rigid. And as you take it out of the box, you got to kind of unroll it because it'll come out in coils. So as you're stretching the line out, you just twist the line and take the coils out and it'll lay flat like this. So we're going to get another one of those lined out there. And then the main line from the garden, you can see we've got it draped up on the fence. It's going to come all the way across to this second line over here. And we're going to bury that under the grass like we did in other places, so we don't hit that with the lawnmower. Now, if you remember when we did the roses, we had ordered the wrong emitters. These are inline emitters for 1/4-inch tubing. If you have 1/4-inch tubing strung along, you can cut your tubing and put one of these in line wherever you have a plant, and it will irrigate or drip that area. This is the correct emitters that we needed. Now, if you can see what those look like, these emitters actually come apart. So if they get clogged, you twist that little flag looking thing on the top, and I'll show you once we get some of these out. And you can pull these emitters apart and clean them out if they get fouled with something. And just like our last order, we placed an order for these the right emitters and then some hose end connectors to connect to faucets. Just like our last order, we ordered that like midweek and we got it on Saturday in the mailbox. So 3 days. So there's still a company out there doing stuff right, folks. Dripworks, I cannot say enough about them. And I'll leave a link to their website down in the description. I've really been pleased with their service and their product. So again, we're not sponsored by them, but they're doing a great job, and I think they deserve the business. Okay, we got both lengths laid out in the sun, relaxing a little bit. Now this old tubing here, we're going to remove all of these couplers from that tubing, and this is pretty much toast, so we're going to throw it in the recycle bin for the plastic and reclaim all of those couplers. If you remember, these fittings are very easy to use and reusable. You can just screw these fittings back off like that, and the tubing comes right off of it. Very simple, very easy to use, reusable. It's all about compression. Unlike some of your other fittings that you can buy on the market, there's not a real sharp barb here that's going to hold that tubing, preventing it from coming back apart. It's all compression. When you slide that collar over the end of that tubing, it pulls it down over that little kind of a, I want to call it a barb, but it's not sharp, but it compresses it down onto this side, which doesn't allow it to come apart. So very great product and reusable. So it's a good addition to any good drip system, is this type of fitting. You hear that? Cat is getting a little bit better at crowing. What do you think there, Karen? Do you think Cat's getting a little better? Sounds like it. Alright, we've recycled all of our fittings. I think what we're going to do now is I'll pull this tubing back out of the way over here, and we're going to get the tractor out and start making our trenches across here in preparation for laying the feeder line for these two drip lines we're putting in here. We've got a couple hundred more feet of our mainline tubing that we could use on some other project around the homestead here. We ordered 500-foot rolls, and if you're curious, a 500-foot roll did every row in our garden. We have 6 rows out there. The rows are 80 feet long. So that 500-foot roll did every roll or every row, and we had this much left. I would say there's probably about 30 feet of it left if we wanted to use that for something else as well. So just to kind of give you an idea how much you'll need. All right, that tractor makes pretty short work of a trench, especially with the moisture we've got in the last few days. And then you don't want to do this on your regular lawn unless you're really careful. You can see the little divots that the rear tires made. All I did was just kick the dirt back in those holes. And then when we backfill this by back dragging with the bucket with the tractor, we'll be running over those spots and that dirt will pack back down. So over here in this corner, I have to get out a shovel and I got to dig back a little ways because I'm going to take this tubing here and cut it where it's in the center of this line here. And then I'm going to pull it back through the cattle panel here so I can come down at an angle and then get in the ground underneath where this little gate area is that we use. So we'll be underground and it's not going to interfere with its opening and closing. Eventually I want to put in a better entrance right here, but right now we just tie this cattle panel up and then we just move it out when we need to get in the gate. It's only 8 feet long, so it kind of hinges on that post. But I'll go get the shovel and then we'll get some more of that mainline drip tubing and we'll start laying it into this trench here. Okay, you can see we made that gentle curve down into the ground. We're now well below the grade once we get to the gate right here. And we've gone along and we've backfilled just a scoop here, scoop there, just to align the drip hose, the feeder line where we wanted it. We put a T in here. I had a leftover old compression T that I just threw down in there because it's going to be underground. And I just stubbed up a pipe, and then above ground level here we'll put in a compression, one of those screw T's, so we can feed this line both directions. We don't have to come very far this way, but we'll put a T there and our line continues on. And then right at the end we use the natural curve of the hose to come up out of the ground instead of using a fitting down there. And then we lined it up with our row of trees. So once we get this all buried, covered up, and ready to install, we'll put another T here for this line. And then eventually this burn barrel is going away. And we're going to put another fruit tree out here in line, kind of in line with this one over here. So we can fit another tree in our row. So we're going to need to come this way just a little bit and to feed this tree here. But I'm going to jump on the tractor and I'm going to use the bucket and we're going to backfill this trench. Okay, we got our trench filled back in. Kind of smoothed out all our little tractor marks out here. But that's going to be just fine. This is not a pristine area of grass. This is basically just mowed down weeds out here. Anybody that grew up in the country knows that normally out in the country you don't have real lawn. You have mowed down weeds. When I was little, whenever we wanted a green patch of what we called lawn, we would just water a dirt lot down with a sprinkler, keep the water on it, and pretty soon the weeds would grow in and we'd mow it down. It'd be green. It would look like a lawn. That's what we called our lawn when I was little. But this area here is pretty much the same thing. It's just mowed down weeds out here, and it stays green because normally here in Nebraska we get about a storm a week in the summer and get a little bit of rain in the Midwest because of all the moisture coming up from down south. So hopefully we continue in that weather pattern and everything stays nice and green during the summer, which is just the opposite that we had in California. About March in California, everything turns brown. All the hills turn brown. All the grass along the side of the road turns brown. Just the opposite here. Ours is brown in the winter. Theirs is brown in the summer. We have our new drip line pulled, one of them. And because we have cages around these little trees, I can't get my hands in there to put emitters where I want them. So what I did was I pulled the hose a little bit long, and I'll put the emitter just outside the cage on these trees that have the cage, and then we'll pull the hose back that way to get the emitter about 6 inches away from the tree or so, and then we can start buttoning everything up. Now here's a look at the new emitters. This is what they look like, and these actually come apart. You can see there's a little, maybe you can't see, a little notch in it right there. You just turn this where that's in that notch, and then that comes apart. You can clean them out and then put it right back together, and it keeps going. Now you can see this one's got a little point on the end. Emitters that have had this in the past, I've actually been able just to pierce that into the hose without using this tool. But it's a lot easier if you go ahead and pierce a little hole before you try to shove that in. Now this end, you can still put a 1/4 inch tube on here and take that to wherever you want to, where the plant is, and just leave it open, and it'll drip right out the end of that tube. But that's what the new ones look like. These are 1 gallon per hour emitters. So each emitter in an hour will put out 1 gallon. Now the ones out in the garden are 1/2 gallon per hour, but they're every 12 inches along that hose. So it'll be about right. The fruit trees need a little bit more water anyway. We've got all of our emitters in line, and we've got everything connected to our supply right here with a T. And I turn the system on. We got both ends of this open, so you can see it's running wide open. And I do that in case there's any contaminants or anything in the line that could plug up the emitters. It's all going to flow out the end. So now we'll close these ends up and we'll check all of our emitters. Okay, we've got both ends plugged up, closed off, and you can see our emitters are working flawlessly. I've already checked all of them down the line, and they're all dripping just as they should. So this side of the orchard is complete. So we're going to give these some water. We're going to just let this thing run. We don't need to turn it off until we go to connect our other line over here. And the garden can use more moisture too, so it's nice and moist when we plant out, probably this weekend. So this is going to be pretty much the same process over here. And then remember, about right here or so, we're going to dig another trench across here and connect this line with the line that goes around the chicken coop and is on the grape arbor over there, so we can water everything all together. And we can take the hose end off of that end of the line over there and just plug that in. So we'll come back when we've got the rest of this done. Okay, my friends, I promised I'd show you when we were done, and we are done. We've got the other line in. We've got this little line here buried, connecting the other line. We've got it connected down here. On this end we used an elbow because remember, these fittings are interchangeable and they come off. I didn't want to have to block off the other piece if I'd put a T there. So when we add our other fruit tree over here, we'll remove that elbow, put in a T and then another piece of hose, and we'll be all good. Let's go up here and check the very top end of the line, because if we were going to have any issues, this is where it would show up. We wouldn't be getting any water up here, but as you can see, it's dripping just fine. Plenty of water. So this system is fairly large. We got the whole garden out there. We have 2 rows of fruit trees. We have all the way around the chicken coop and the grape arbor here. So if you remember in the last video, we told you if you have a large system, you could forego the pressure regulator. And that's what we did here. When we got to the end of this system here and we let it run, we only had just barely a trickle coming out the other end. So I went and removed the pressure regulator off of the hydrant, and then we had plenty of flow coming out of here. And I think we have enough emitters in this system where we don't have to worry about building pressure and popping hoses off or anything like that. So now that this thing is working good and I've got my mess cleaned up, I'm going to go up and sit my favorite spot under that tree because I'm hot. All right, folks, we made it over here underneath the shade tree in our favorite chair. I like to sit here after I get a project done or at the end of the day and kind of look out over the property. And you get that satisfied feeling that what you're doing is worthwhile. Things look nice. The previous family that owned this property put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this property. And we try to honor that by keeping things up around here and trying to keep with the spirit of what they would want. We're still friends with a lot of the family, and we're friends with them on Facebook, and they comment on the things that we do around here, and they've really enjoyed being able to follow along. And we just love that family and the previous owners that lived here. We've kind of adopted him, and been a good time. So we're glad to get that project done. We've been wanting to get that project done since we put those fruit trees in. Being able to just walk to the hydrant and turn that on and walk away is a game changer for us, because there's lots to do on this 5-acre piece of land here. I do it full time, and Kelly helps me on the weekends, and it's all we can do to keep up with Mother Nature around here. But it's a labor of love. But again, we're glad to have that done. So we hope you've learned a few things on how to put a drip system in. We hope you've enjoyed the video. We're going to go to some softball games tonight, and Kelly will be back tomorrow. She's out in California, if you remember. And then tomorrow evening, I bought tickets 3 weeks ago to go see Top Gun tomorrow evening when it opens. So I'm going to do that. I've been waiting for that movie for 2 years. It kept getting postponed because of COVID. Another reason to not like COVID. So until next time, stay safe and stay healthy. We love you guys. Come on back and see us. Like, share, subscribe to help that almighty algorithm so we can reach more people and help more people, because that's our goal on this channel. So we're going to get back in the kitchen and make those other pies we promised you. So stay tuned for that. See you on the next video.